31st of August 1997, 12:33 a.m. Pondalma Tunnel, Paris. A car strikes the 13th pillar. Inside is the much-loved Diana, Princess of Wales. Within hours, the news breaks and sends shockwaves around the world. The princess is dead. A nation admired her grace and compassion. Millions shed tears, but grief has a way of leaving something behind. Had the Queen of Hearts' love been too powerful to die? Is there somewhere between the living and the lost where she still walks? Let's find out. Candles flickered beneath Buckingham Palace. Flowers carpeted the gates at Kensington, and thousands stood silently outside Allthorp, all trying to comprehend that their princess was gone. Yet, even in those first days, strange things were mentioned among those who worked closest to her. At the Pondalma Tunnel, where the crash occurred, first responders spoke of an uncanny stillness in the air, as if the city itself were holding its breath. A paramedic later recalled that his watch stopped at the moment he touched the wreckage, a detail he discovered only hours later when he tried to record the time of his report. Days after the crash, city engineers inspecting the site noticed the tunnel lights flickering unpredictably. Though the electrical systems were intact, drivers passing through at night began reporting brief malfunctions in their car radios, the sound cutting to static precisely at the 13th pillar before returning to normal once they'd passed. By September, the Flame of Liberty, the monument above the tunnel, which had actually been installed in May 1989, became an unofficial shrine to Princess Diana. Visitors began leaving flowers, cards, and candles. But many also described something else. Several claimed to have seen a woman standing silently near the railing in the early hours before dawn, dressed in pale clothing, her hair faintly illuminated by the streetlights. One couple from Lyon told local police they thought she was a mourner until she vanished into the shadows without taking a step. Others reported sudden chills or a strong floral scent that lingered only briefly. In England, at Kensington Palace, her home of 16 years, the gates disappeared beneath a sea of flowers and handwritten notes. The scent of blossoms drifted across the gardens for days, as though the entire city were wrapped in a single breath of floral perfume. Security officers patrolling the grounds during those nights later recalled moments they couldn't explain. Motion sensors activating in Diana's apartments, even though they were sealed. Faint piano music could be heard from inside, and the flicker of a single light which appeared in her former bedroom window. At Althorp, her family's ancestral estate, the preparations for her burial began under a shroud of secrecy and sorrow. Her brother, Charles Spencer, chose the small wooded island at the centre of the oval lake as her resting place, away from public intrusion, surrounded by calm water and ancient trees. There appears to be a lot of debate about Diana's final resting place, although the island is the official recorded burial site. Many believe it is elsewhere. I guess like most issues on such a sensitive subject, it will never really be truly known. What's your opinion? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. When she was laid to rest there, the atmosphere was said to be utterly still, the wind dropping completely as the service began. One attendant swore he heard the faint sound of a woman's voice singing during the eulogy, though no music was being played at that moment. In the days that followed, those who lived and worked on the Allthorp Estate began speaking of subtle disturbances. A gardener claimed to see ripples move across the surface of the lake on windless mornings, as though someone unseen were crossing the water. Others reported hearing footsteps on the bridge, though it had been closed to everyone after the funeral. At dusk, when the last of the visitors had gone, a soft glow was sometimes seen among the trees on the island. These encounters have been reported by several people, and being realistic, not all of them could just imagine it. Althorp is a quiet, sprawling estate in Northamptonshire, built in 1688. It became one of the prominent stately homes in England. It has been home to the Spencer family for more than 5 centuries. For those who know it well, say the house changes after dark. The long corridors creak, faint draughts can be felt, both which is kind of normal for an old house. Among the oldest reports is that of the Grey Lady, a spirit said to wander the corridors at dawn. Some call her Lady Georgiana Spencer, an ancestor whose life was gilded with grace and grief. Her story mirrors Diana's in ways that feel almost unreal. 2 women beloved by the world, but lonely within their own walls. To this day, Althorp still carries that feeling of mourning, an unbroken thread running from Georgiana's time to Diana's. Diana spent her childhood at Park House on the Sandringham estate, but moved to Althorp when her father inherited the title of Earl Spencer in 1975, the very place that is now her final home. Friends recall how Diana would walk the grounds alone, but was always drawn to the oval lake, where they claim she felt a strange kind of peace. Some have wondered if she sensed the presence of the Grey Lady among the oaks and elms, which is an interesting thought. Some claim that Althorp has never been the same since Diana died. Before her burial, there was an uneasy silence. One staff member later confided that while arranging flowers in the house, she caught sight of a pale figure reflected in a mirror, tall, slender, wearing a dress that shimmered faintly. When she turned, there was no one there. Some historians suggest Diana's spirit may have joined Althorp's long line of family ghosts. Where Lady Georgiana's sorrow once lingered in the hallways, Diana's compassion seems to remain, as though the two women are bound by the same unspoken grief. And would you believe that the Grey Lady has not been seen since 1997? Wow, that is definitely intriguing. Nearly 3 decades have passed, yet the Pondalma Tunnel still feels different from the rest of Paris. Traffic flows through it day and night, but locals say the tunnel holds a silence, a tension that hasn't lifted since 1997. Drivers who use the route daily claim they can tell the exact point where the air changes. A subtle pressure in the ears, a dip in temperature, and then, as quickly as it came, the moment passes. The Flame of Liberty, now permanently associated with Diana, remains the most visited unofficial memorial in the city. Tourists stop for photographs. Others pause in quiet reflection. But those who live nearby speak of stranger moments that never reach the headlines. One street cleaner described seeing a faint glimmer around the base of the monument just before dawn, like candlelight in motion. Another worker said the traffic lights at the junction sometimes flicker in unison, a pattern technicians can't reproduce. Local shopkeepers along Avenue de New York have grown used to late-night visitors leaving flowers, candles, even handwritten notes taped to the railings. Skeptics call it coincidence. Believers call it memory. Either way, those who stand beneath the torch at night sometimes report a peculiar calm, as if the city exhales and everything else fades into silence. For some, it's grief preserved in stone and light. For others, it's proof that moments of love and loss can bend the air around them. Whatever truth remains, the Pondalma has become more than a tunnel, and the Flame of Liberty more than a monument. Together, they stand as reminders that even in the brightest city on earth, one light still flickers for a life that refuses to fade away. In Kensington Palace apartment 8 and 9 were Diana's world for 16 years. The place she raised her sons, wrote letters late into the night, and met friends. Behind those tall windows, she was free from the cameras, yet never entirely alone. Staff who worked with her remember the laughter first, the clatter of high heels in the corridor, the smell of her perfume drifting through open doors, the radio playing softly in the kitchen. But they also remember the silences, long, thoughtful pauses when she'd stand by the window overlooking the gardens. Several recalled how she hated shutting the curtains at night. She said she liked to see the stars. After her death, the apartments were sealed, their contents catalogued and stored, but workers maintaining the surrounding wings began to report small, inexplicable details. A faint tapping from behind closed doors, the sound of movement in empty rooms, lights that flickered on briefly, only to switch themselves off again before anyone arrived to check. A former guard later told a journalist that he sometimes heard soft music, a melody like the ones she used to play, drifting faintly from the old apartments when the building was empty. He admitted he never investigated. It didn't feel frightening, he said, just sad. Another worker described smelling roses in the service corridor, a scent that lingered even after the air vents were cleaned and the carpets replaced. Visitors to Kensington Gardens have also spoken of fleeting impressions near the palace gates. Some claim they've seen a figure standing by the window of her former rooms, a silhouette framed by lamplight, motionless for a few seconds before disappearing. The gardens surrounding Kensington Palace have always been places of calm, but after Diana's death, they became something more, a living memorial. The air there still carries her memory, through colour and scent. Here it is the flowers that speak for her. In 2017, the sunken garden was redesigned in her honour, planted with hundreds of white tulips, lilies, and forget-me-nots, her favourites. Visitors often remark on how still the space feels, even on busy afternoons. The water in the fountain barely ripples, and the air seems unusually fragrant, heavy with the sweetness of blooms that seem to last longer than the season allows. Gardeners who've tended the beds for decades say they sometimes notice subtle shifts, petals that open just before dawn when light hasn't yet touched the garden, or a cool breeze that moves through only one corner while the rest remains still. Some visitors describe catching the perfume of white lilies long before reaching the gates, though the wind blows the other way. Others say the aroma grows stronger near dusk, as if the day exhales with the fading light. Scientists attribute it to the dense planting and humidity. But those who come to leave flowers believe it's something more, the echo of a soul that once found peace among these petals. Even at night, when the palace windows go dark, the garden seems faintly alive. Lanterns reflect off the water, casting small halos of light across the paths. The stillness feels sacred, not eerie. And in that calm space between scent and silence, it's easy to believe that Diana never truly left. She simply found a quieter way to remain. Long before she became a global figure, Diana's work with charities defined who she was. Hospitals, shelters, hospices, landmine campaigns. These were the places where she felt most like herself. After her death, something unusual began happening at vigils and events connected to those causes. It wasn't supernatural in the traditional sense. Instead, it was the kind of presence people felt rather than saw. A quiet shift in the air, a sudden calm, or a moment of warmth that arrived just when emotions were at their rawest. Those who organised early memorial gatherings remember these moments clearly. At a children's hospice in London, a volunteer spoke about how the building seemed unusually peaceful during the first anniversary service. Several attendees later said they felt as though someone was standing just behind them. No one mentioned ghosts. They simply described the same feeling. She was here. Among the many homes connected to the royal family, two hold the strongest emotional threads to Diana. Sandringham, where she spent her earliest years, and Balmoral, where she found rare pockets of peace. Diana's childhood home, Park House, on the Sandringham Estate, has long been associated with stories of sensitivity and intuition. Those who worked there after 1997 spoke of a soft, inexplicable warmth that would pass through. They also stated that this was her first home, and if she visits anywhere, it would be here. Up in Balmoral, however, carries a different kind of memory. Diana often struggled with the rigid expectations of the royal household. Yet the Scottish countryside brought her a rare sense of peace. Former employees say that on certain evenings, especially during the holidays, when the family gathers, the atmosphere shifts, creating a warm, comforting environment. Some recall hearing faint movement along the upper floors when no one was staying there, although we have to ask, could this be attributed to Diana or to the old building? During a summer's stay, shortly after William and Harry arrived at the estate, William walked past the corridor leading to their bedrooms and felt a sudden change in the air, a coolness that quickly transitioned into a warm, almost protective sensation. It lasted only seconds, but he described it as like a mother checking on her boys before they slept. He kept the story to himself until many years later. For those who believe, these gentle impressions are simply Diana doing what she always did, moving toward the people she loved, not bound by place or protocol. Just as she travelled in life, she seems to still travel between Sandringham, Balmoral, and Kensington, not as a spirit trapped in history, but as a mother whose care continues, quietly and without fanfare, in the homes that shaped her family's world. In the end, every place touched by Diana carries something that time hasn't managed to erase. Not a haunting in the traditional sense, but a feeling, quiet, steady, unmistakably human. Paris holds the shock of loss, Kensington carries her warmth, Sandringham keeps her earliest joys, and Balmoral preserves the rare peace she found far from public life. Thank you for watching this Spooky Chronicles production. Click that like button to help push the video out to other viewers. Tap subscribe to join our community. Ring the notification bell and hit that hype button so you never miss another video. And share this video with a friend who swears they don't believe in ghosts. Good night.